Good evening. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for Monday, March 16th, 2020 to order. Before we go into public forum, which I think it's not a surprise that we don't have a public forum tonight, I wanted to just address a couple of items before we start. First and foremost, you may be wondering, or one of the questions we've gotten, or I've gotten over the last literally 24 hours is the Board of Finance meeting, and why are we still meeting? I've gotten it from friends and family, my own board colleagues, and it's a very, very fair question. I thought it'd be appropriate, our first selectman's here, I wanted to read what you wrote to us literally within not even 24 hours ago of why the Board of Finance is meeting, and just hit this real quick. The town government should be a stabilizing influence on the community and maintain business as usual wherever possible. That means keeping essential operations and processes open and functional. We can dispense with many board and commission meetings for the time being, but those with a fiduciary or regulatory role should continue to operate. The Board of Finance is considered to be in that category. We will move the meeting to the large conference room, large room in the community center. Recommend that everyone follow best practices related to social distancing, avoid all physical contact, and general hygiene. And we will be setting up the tables to allow for the recommended 6-foot spacing between members as well as staff. So I was going to, I thought it was best to read that because as you may notice, I don't know how Mike's got the camera, but I may look like I'm by myself in this room right now. But we have practiced trying to spread out as much as possible, including the audience, best practices at this particular moment. I think all of us have washed our hands and we haven't had any contact, and we're spread apart. It's almost like we don't like each other, which I could tell you is very far from the truth. I also know that the governor this evening, or maybe it was this morning, had an executive order to relax the restrictions on remote meetings. I don't know if that happened this morning or if it happened earlier than that. Therefore, we do have members of the Board of Education and our secretary on the call or on the phone. We have Ken Gamerman, who is also on the line. We have Megan Forgione-Scanlon, and we have Tracy Brinkman, and they are all connected through the phone. I also wanted to mention, very importantly, and it was something that was brought to my attention by a couple of community members, is the importance of the mass notification system. I believe that all of us here are on that notification system, but I want to make sure for the people watching at home that the town, both the Guilford Public Schools and the town, have links on their website that are right on the homepage. I tested them out tonight to make sure. I've been on the mass notification for a while, but I wanted to make sure that everyone in the community understands that there is a notification system and our regular updates on the COVID-19 virus and the results of that right now. I was having a conversation with Dr. Freeman right before we started this meeting, and literally we're commenting on the fact that, and I think we are all experiencing this, every hour things are changing. So what we're doing right now is just within the last 24 hours, and I'm sure things that are going to be said tonight, because it's taped, in 2 or 3 days are going to be out of date and old. This is a moving target right now that we're dealing with, and so I just wanted to make sure that the public knew that this is a little bit very different for all of us and unique, and we will cope with it as we need to. But we have to do the town business, and therefore we'll begin with our meeting. I did already ask for public forum, and there is technically really no public here except for those that are going to speak tonight anyway. So we'll go on with item number 2 on our agenda, approved minutes of our regular meeting minutes of February 13th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
I have one comment.
Go ahead, Ken.
On item 6 on the minutes, Ms. Malavasi explained that the for the renovation of the science wing were earmarked for design and preliminary work, and she was going to get back to us on the use of that money. I think it was $49,000. What did that pay for?
The 49,000, well, I believe that was just design services. There's no construction or anything involved in that.
No, I know that,
Yeah.
but what added up to that? Was that a complete design, or is it all done? Are we happy with it? What?
That might,
I don't believe we've received the final report that I know of.
I have not seen it.
Ken, to answer,
That might be a question to ask the Board of Education.
Can you repeat the question?
the question is about the design of the, what was, 595 New England.
What did it consist of?
What did the 49,000
Design and
consist
preliminary
of?
work.
Yeah, it was just basic design work, and I believe that it was specific to the HVAC system. That building currently doesn't have any heat or ventilation, so even being used as a storage facility, it's work that needs to be completed. I'm answering that, however, off the top of my head. I can talk
Okay.
with Mr. Gurnham and have a more specific answer for you tomorrow.
So I thought I saw something in the building committee minutes regarding the engineering services for the HVAC, so that 49,000 was including the HVAC upgrades, and I believe it was to retrofit the existing system, because it would have been cost prohibitive by
Substantially higher.
hundreds of thousands of dollars as opposed to 49. Well, as opposed to, that's 49 is just the design fee.
Yes.
So I think that there was a quote in there or something about the fact that it would be much less.
Yeah, doing the work would be much less
A retrofit.
expensive than a complete replacement. And while it provides necessary HVAC, even for the building that now only contains a weight room and storage, it is being designed in such a way to have capacity to expand, to have further uses to the town as office space or other usable spaces.
Okay.
So
Ken-
it's a flexible design.
Okay. Ken,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you heard all that, but basically it's to expand.
I did not.
Expand the use of the building, in the infrastructure of the building, to be able to use it for other purposes, which would not include, by the way, just for record, educational purposes. It would be for offices, administrative, things like
Any
that.
town use that might be needed in the future.
Because it's restricted right now in terms of how that building is used, so it would have to be retrofitted. So that's what's included in those fees. And those are simply design fees, not bid costs for construction.
Right, and the renovation itself, what is that budgeted at?
Renovate, I'm sure that's to be determined. They haven't put it out yet.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Is there anything else on those minutes? Actually, I had highlighted the same thing, so. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I did have one thing, and it's just because it's clarification. Item number 5, right at the very bottom, the review and accept report of expenditures for the Board of Education. The last line says, Mr. Gammerman noted that tuition is under. I would have thought that would have, again, I would have thought that would have been that tuition is over budget. I don't know exactly how it was stated, but it's,
I think at the time of our meeting, tuition was under budget, but the projection was that it was going to be over budget because
Okay.
of either billing and/or changes in some of the needs of the students. I think that's my recollection.
May have been different
Okay.
from that point to
That
the
should just
point
be-
of the previous year,
Right.
but we are projecting to be over budget by the end of the school year.
right, so at the time of this meeting, it was under budget.
Exactly.
But the billings had not caught up yet.
Right. There were timing issues with the invoices and also changes in the needs of some of the students that they were anticipating that was going to end up, so they were projecting that they're going to end up being over budget by the end of the year.
Okay. Tracy,
For tuition.
were you able to get that?
No.
Yeah, it's, it's hard only because I have the microphone in front of me, so, yeah,
It's okay. You don't have to go back because I can
You-
just
you
watch
can-
the
you can
video
look- you
after
can
to
look at
get
the
what I
tape.
missed. So don't worry about me.
all right, great, thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
All right.
All right, is there anything else in the meeting minutes for February 13th, 2020? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 2, under 2, budget public hearing minutes of March 3rd, 2020. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we accept the minutes as written.
Okay.
Second?
Discussion. The only item I saw was slight typo on page 2, near the top, second paragraph where it talks about Mr. Hoey stated the proposed town operating budget. It should say debt service for both the town and Board of Ed totals, 10 million except, and the rest of it. I did not have anything else on those.
The only other thing I would add on page 2 as well, and kind of in the middle of the page, 2 paragraphs down from where you were just making that comment, Mr. Chairman, is in the paragraph that starts, Mr. Hoey then went over increases and decreases. About halfway through, Mr. Hoey explained that they have reached the pinnacle associated with the new high school. I just think, we were talking about the pinnacle associated with debt service for the new high school, so I think just adding that in there
Okay.
may clarify it just slightly. I think we all understood what he was saying, but just for the
Okay,
for
so,
the minute.
so third full paragraph on page 2, where it talks about Mr. Hoey explained that they have reached the pinnacle associated with the new debts, with the new high school. There should be debt service after high school.
Right.
We hear beeping.
You entered 11294.
All right, is there anything else on the, anything else on those minutes?
Press to re-enter your access code. There are 3.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions?
Tracy, can you put John
Ken.
down as abstain?
Yeah.
Okay, John, we got John as a abstain. Ken, you're okay with the minutes, right? Ken, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. I was.
Okay, could you do me a favor? Could you put it on mute?
I
Okay.
can hear you a little better now.
Okay, all right, good. Under approved minutes, we have the budget workshop minutes of March 5th, 2020.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion on those meeting minutes? I did not see any.
I didn't have any.
Okay, all good? Okay, call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're all here, all good. Okay, item number 3, correspondence, standing building committee minutes. We have 2 sets. We have February 11th, and we have March 3rd.
I think I have a comment on.
Yeah, I have a comment on both, actually.
All right, Ken, go ahead.
Both
And-
minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
As relates to, it's item 5 on February 11, and it's revisited as item 6 on March 3rd. On performance contracting. We don't seem to have numbers yet on that, and yet there's no question that we are entitled to leased payments, reimbursements on that, especially since the contracting-based projects are 99.9% complete. We were told on the February 11th minutes that we'd get the report, that they would get the report, meaning SBC, by March 2nd. On March 3rd minutes, they still don't have it, and I think there's a question here as to how we can expedite that, because there is money due to the town. They're 1 year behind anyway, and they missed the projects by, according to Mr. Sands, by a year.
Okay,
So there's guaranteed savings equal to the lease payments, and I'd like to get an update on that and not wait another month for another delay.
okay, I'm going to have the first selectman actually respond to that as he's raised his hand. The problem is, you're not gonna be able to hear it unless he comes right next to me, and he's not coming next to me, so.
Mike, why don't you let me add my comment, because I have the same question.
He doesn't want to be too close to you, Mike.
No,
I have
So-
a similar question, so I think I should add the twist at the end, and that is that this phase 2 with the solar panels also seems to be pushing the project out even further.
All right, Matt, if you could,
Maybe I'm not understanding that correctly, but it seems like they pushed out the solar panel work to a phase 2 that hasn't even been started, right?
That was originally scheduled for the Public Works and has now been redeployed to one of the schools.
Be re-engineered.
The answer to your question, Ken, is you're right. We do not have the numbers, and the action that has been taken is a demand letter was sent from our attorney to their attorney, and we are now in negotiations about when they are going to produce that report for us. That's the short and simple answer. I won't go into any more detail on the.
It's hard to hear you, Matt.
right now, basically the town is asking them for the information and ultimately.
We have our attorneys,
the attorneys.
have sent a demand letter to their legal team about the lack of performance. We're contending they are in violation of performance requirement, or contract requirements at this point.
Okay, I heard you.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
And does somebody want, what was the answer to Jonathan's question?
About the solar being?
I think he addressed it, but could you just repeat it, Matt? I didn't quite get it.
Those are the panels that were originally scheduled to go on Public Works, and they've been repurposed for which?
I can't remember which one of our rooftops, but one of the school rooftops.
Right.
So it wasn't originally part of the performance contract?
It was.
It was.
It needs to be redesigned to a different building.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, that was lost on me. That's what you're trying to explain to me.
It's the same size solar array, we're just moving it from one of the town buildings to one of the school buildings. It was determined that it wasn't going to be appropriately placed on the originally cited town building.
So we think it'll be more effective at the other building, or just more practical to install it there? Or?
Better fit and equally effective was my understanding, it just needed to be relocated.
Okay, and then I take your answer as good news. I mean, I think we've been waiting, long enough for the engineering firm to figure out if we're getting the performance that we expect.
Right.
Is the letter to the, and sorry, I apologize for my memory, but there's the contracting company and then there's the engineering company that'll do the study. Was the letter sent to the engineering company?
No, Johnson Controls.
Okay,
Johnson Controls is responsible for developing that. Actually, we are working in partnership with ECG in terms of getting Johnson Controls to provide the reports that they're supposed to provide.
okay,
So they are our advocate in this effort.
okay, here.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else on either of the two standing building committee? Okay. Item number 2, pension committee minutes. We have the February 19th minutes, and we have the investment report dated March 16th. Any comments or questions on those? Actually, it might not be a bad idea just to take it off of, I was going to bring it up under old business, but the OPEB trust document, I know that the draft of that went out to the representatives that were at the OPEB meeting on December 19th. So that draft went out on, I believe it was March 3rd or 4th. And comments were due by Friday the 13th on that.
You want me to respond?
Sure.
I didn't receive any comments, and I did hear from our town attorney that he approved of the documents, so we will be moving forward to the next step with those documents. They need to go through the Board of Selectmen, and the pension committee, if they meet next month, will start to review the investment policy statement. We're hoping to have, if we're able to have those documents all in place by the end of June 30, so that we can fund July 1.
And just to follow up more for the folks watching home, the documents that you're referring to are the documents that actually create
Correct.
the OPEB trust.
The trust document, which creates the trust itself, and the amendments to the ordinance for the pension committee, which provides them the authority over the investments.
And that's the necessary first step to set up the trust, and then we can come up with a funding mechanism to move the money that we've set aside and potentially will be setting aside into
Correct.
the trust.
Then it falls on the pension committee on how that is set up.
Great, thank you.
I'm just itching to remind everybody what it stands for. It's other post-employment benefits. And we're paying on the go at the moment, and the plan, of course, is to put money into a fund that will begin to, as an endowment, to continue the payments. Will it be, and just one quick question, will it be a subcommittee or the entire pension committee?
The entire pension committee. It will be managed in the same way the pension is managed. The pension committee will, by ordinance, also be named the OPEB
Yeah.
trust committee, so it will be a separate item on their agenda.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on pension? All right, item number 3 is Finance Director's response to the management letter received by Bloom Shapiro in the audit. Mary Jane, the memo is dated on March 4th, and it was a response, and it had to do with comments or comments from Bloom Shapiro regarding general ledger maintenance, grant review, general ledger maintenance and cash receipts, uniform guidance, procurement standards, and cybersecurity. Those 4 basic topics. I could read all of these, but we've read them all. I don't know if there's any questions rather than go through each of these. There'll be,
I'd just like to say all 4 items are being addressed
yes, that's what it looks like, so I have no questions. It
between
looks
the
like-
town and the Board of Ed.
Yes. Yes. I have no
I think
questions.
it's important that we note that these were just minor comments, that we had a clean audit, and that they're not significant issues that needed to be addressed. And
Right.
we're taking a proactive stance.
They don't involve any sort of dramatic
Yeah.
restructuring of procedures or processes or anything along those lines.
Correct, they are really just recommendations, but I just wanted to provide you with the information on how the Board of Ed and the town is responding to each and every one.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 4, review and accept report of expenditures for the Board of Education for February 2020. Reporting this evening,
I think you had town government on the agenda first.
no, Board of Education's first.
Okay?
Town first.
Oh, the original agenda had the town, oh, was that the
Correct.
hard copy?
The hard copy had the town first, so
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay, well, we're going with the board pack on this one, so, sorry, Ken.
Okay.
Gonna have to shift gears a little
No,
bit.
no, no.
All right. So John Del Ventura, this is your first report for us.
This is it.
So congratulations, you
Thanks
made
for
it here.
having
Yeah, hey, anytime.
All right.
The challenge here is going to be that you're reporting, and it's going to be very hard for them to hear, and it's going to be back and forth, so
Do you want to bring that over here?
I could, I could do that. I swear I sanitized my hands.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you hear me all right, guys? Hello?
Probably on mute.
Can you guys hear John? All right.
No?
Well, Megan, you're gonna have, Ken, can you hear John? Just,
Ken, can you hear me?
No, I hear you.
He's coming
They-
to the
yeah,
machine.
oh, all right.
Yeah, it's the speakerphone.
Well, the people who set this up, and
Okay.
they said it was coming from that, so,
Isn't he not using the Bluetooth coming and going from that speaker? So it's that speaker that's the operative device?
yeah, all right.
Yeah, I could put it to this phone if you'd like.
Yeah, wanna try that?
How's that, everyone? Better?
It's better.
Okay, good.
There you go.
All right, so I'll just switch it back when we're done.
Okay.
All right.
See, I have to admit, it helps that he's in tech. Thanks, John. He just took care of it. Where were you before? All right, I'm not saying anything, John. It's your show now.
All right, thanks for having me, everyone. So I had the opportunity to review the financials for the month of February with Linda, and I'll go through kind of my highlights here for you. I'd also like to talk about the projections as well for the year. So expenditures for the month of February were $4,666,013.94. Expenditures and encumbrances through the end of February were 61.55% of the budget as compared to 58.55% of last year's budget. Revenue for February 2018 was $1,013,716, which did in fact include $999,330 from our excess cost grant. The excess cost grant was 74.9% of the total amount due. As in previous years, we do expect May's allocation to be at a lower rate. Other items of interest here, purchase services, dues and fees, you'll notice are a bit over budget. This is due to the IB fees. Those will be reimbursed by the students. And the warrants, if you've had a look at them, total $2,086,174.34. If I can, I'd like to run through projections, if that's okay.
Yes, it is. Go ahead.
All right, good. So overall, for the year, we are looking at a surplus of $60,093. In terms of going through the lines here, salaries were projected at $396,052 over budget. Under budget. Information services is projected to be $123,793 under budget due to restructuring of positions. Teacher salaries are projected to be $116,562 under budget. Employee benefits is projected to be $105,492 under budget. The only line over budget is our purchase services. You'll notice the two items there. Our safety, sanitation, and upkeep of buildings is projected to be $59,388 over budget. Electricity is projected to be over budget by $154,622. This is specific to the payment for the energy performance contract. Tuition is projected to be $155,000 over budget. The tuition line reflects an estimated of the excess cost grant at 72%. Supplies and materials projected to be $158,559 under budget. And capital projected to be $35,745 under budget.
Questions?
Questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have two questions.
Go for it.
On purchase services, one on purchase services and I think the other was on capital. On purchase services, the textbooks that I noticed are $20,000 under budget. My question there is whether we put off the purchase of textbooks that are needed this year, or whether this was in as an item that could be postponed. The second question related to the being under budget on site improvements and what site improvement projects were postponed, with considering that we're about $30,500 under budget on that one. So those two items, could we get some explanation on that?
Do you want to take them?
Both of those tend to be timing items. Those are both areas where we are cautious with spending all of those dollars up front in the school year, and it's less an item of having eliminated a project rather than on being cautious about when to implement the project. Site improvements, for instance, it is likely running under budget because we have held off on basic maintenance. They would be things like tile carpet replacement, ceiling tile replacement. And the reason we hold off on expenditures like that is because of unanticipated expenditures like those we are experiencing in these last couple of weeks around things like coronavirus and increasing cleaning and providing more supplies and materials. So those tend to be line items that equalize by the end of the school year, even though we're running under budget currently.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you for the report, by the way. That's quite detailed. I think it addressed a lot of my questions.
Great.
On legal services, I know we're over, and maybe you mentioned this, but on the legal services, are we pretty much gonna top out there? Or is there expected a lot more, or just a little bit more?
We are coming into one more negotiation that we need to complete for the end of this school year. And in fact, I'm going to anticipate additional legal costs as the end of this school year and looking at changing our school calendar, changing our school year, looking at distance learning. That's going to require some support from our labor attorney, as well as possible negotiation of memorandums of agreement with a number of different bargaining units. If we shift to a distance learning structure for a significant amount of time, that will impact each of our 5 bargaining units differently. Teachers will be experiencing a very different impact to their working conditions, providing electronic communications and work for students at home than would be experienced by other service providers, say like the lunch staff or the paraprofessionals who work in the buildings directly with students. So I'm anticipating some legal expenditure associated with those negotiations.
Okay.
And again, those would be sort of mid-contract negotiations about impact of change to working conditions. They're not renegotiating the contracts.
This may be very early. I mean, it's a very fluid and changing dynamic, but what impact, if any, have you noticed so far on special education, and what do you see going forward with that in terms of tuition, or if facilities need to close, what's the solution there?
I don't know if they could hear that. If you could just repeat.
Sure. Yeah. So no, I can you guys hear me from where I'm sitting? I don't want to violate social distancing norms. So the question was, and there was a caveat that it may be early to ask this question. What are the impacts to special education delivery related to the school closing, which we initiated just today? We've just been through our first day of closed schools. And more specifically, what impact might that have on the tuition line? And while I really appreciate the question and the opportunity to answer it, the answer is it is very early. So the governor's executive order to close all schools in the state of Connecticut through March 31st does in fact impact private educational facilities. And that was being clarified because when the governor made the pronouncement, he verbally said public schools, but the pronouncement does apply to all schools. So currently, any of our students who are in Connecticut-based outplacements, those schools are closed. There will need to be negotiations that take place. I was on a conference call today with attorneys from Shipman and Goodwin, but the contracts generally are written for the placement. So there's going to probably be additional legal costs accrued in working out what the per diem impact is of school closings and how do we meet those students' IEP needs when the outside provider that we contracted with to provide those needs is now closed. Locally in Guilford, parents are expecting us to provide supplementary materials even for days that we intend to make up, and in fact, provide distance learning opportunities for days that we don't intend to make up. We're going to have to apply those same expectations to our private providers, and that will probably involve legal expenditures.
I think it would be fair to say that we could go through every one of these line items.
Yep.
And see
How it's
a
gonna
pro and a con to this. And of course, all of it's a con, okay? All of it's negative. But there's gonna be savings in some areas. Like, I mean, is it fair to say that you're gonna have buildings that are gonna be closed for, I mean, they're still gonna have to run to a certain extent in heat, but there's gonna be certain utilities that might drop, there's gonna be certain services that are gonna drop. I'm not saying it's a wash, but you still have salaries, you still have contracts you're gonna have to probably go back to the, table with. So, I mean, every one of these line items is so fluid right now, and and by the way, this is gonna go for the town too.
Yes.
I mean, I'd love to ask the question of the town, what is the impact going to be? And I don't think any of us can answer that, but are they already seeing impacts? And yeah, and it's changing by the hour. So, it's a really, really good question. We all want to know the answers, and we're not going to get any answers tonight, because tomorrow morning, it's all going to be different and a whole new set of rules. And they were a whole set of new rules, this morning and literally this afternoon. So,
Yeah, and just as an example of that, we announced our closing of schools around noontime on Friday. Over the weekend, the governor announced his closing of schools of all Connecticut school districts, and we had different end dates. We were projecting a return to school of March 27th. The governor is imposing a return to school not before March 31st. And that was to be done under conditions that had been established for waiver requirements around any attempt to conduct distance learning, and recommendations from the State Department of Education that you make up the days rather than provide distance learning. But before the end of business today, we received a dropping of any of the waiver requirements, and the State Department of Education completely reversing its recommendation and now encouraging that we embrace distance learning, and in fact embrace it as soon as possible. So in less than one business day, we've had 3 different sets of conditions around which we closed school. And so it is moving very quickly. While you could anticipate that there would be some savings regarding the breakfast and lunch program, because if school's not in session, you'd think that those programs are shuttered. In fact, we are providing breakfast and lunch to any family with children 18 years or younger, as long as one of them attends a Guilford school at no cost. And so we in fact may be picking up cost to provide meals while schools are closed, compared to what it would cost us to provide meals when schools were open, and we won't be bringing in any offsetting revenue for any of the meals that we do provide. So there's a lot of work yet to be done before I can make a reliable projection about how this will impact our bottom line for this year.
Can you tell us, though, a little bit about how the school is running when it was empty? Are people actually coming to the building? Did you adjust the heat down? Are some people, not going to be there and maybe not going to report in?
Also remains up in the air. I'm currently working with both the state level and the Guilford level departments of public health to determine whether or not, with students out of the building, we can continue to run the buildings so that teachers can be working from the building, providing the electronic opportunities for students, because teachers would be able to do that more efficiently in the buildings, collaborating with each other with the support of administrators, coaches, and technicians that we can provide. If not, if the restrictions on gatherings and the advice around social distancing continues in the way it's going, all of our teachers may be working from home rather than from school, which I think will impact our efficiency and the quality of what we can provide, but might allow us to darken the buildings to a greater degree and maybe generate some offsets there. We haven't started that yet. Today the buildings ran, and the buildings were full today with administrative staff, custodial staff, and part of our clerical staff. Remember, we announced the school closing on Friday when students were home for a pre-planned day off. So we want to make sure that we have a few days in the beginning of this week where we're open to the public, so that students and families have the opportunity to pick up needed personal materials or instructional materials or even medications that they may have left in the buildings when they left on Thursday, not realizing that they'd been in for their last day for what could be a prolonged period. So they were up and they were fully running today. We expect to be in that condition tomorrow and Wednesday, and possibly shuttering or gearing the buildings back later this week, but I'm still waiting for guidance from state and local public health officials there.
And then, I don't know how this affects the budget either, but
Private tuitions?
will we extend the school year now, of course, because we missed the days?
Only through June 30th.
So again, last week, it was made clear that the 180-day requirement would be waived after schools had made up any dates possible up until June 31st, I believe. Today's guidance seems to be different than that, and it seems to suggest that if we move to an electronic setting more quickly, that there will be no required makeup days moving forward. There are some details to that communication that I need to have explained to me. So there's some contradiction between what we learned last week and what we learned today. We need to clarify.
Definitely new challenges, I know.
It's just moving really, really quickly. And we're seeing the same thing statewide. You know, restaurants one day were told to cut occupancy to half, and now they've been told to shutter completely. So I'm not complaining. I'm just pointing out that it's moving quickly, and we don't have finalized answers at this time.
On the,
Since we're in, I just want to go back to private tuition for a moment, because I was noticing an item on page 3 of your warrants where there's a 1-month tuition of $35,000 for a single student, and I'm assuming that that's out of state. Do you have any sense of what the cancellations will be on the out-of-state private tuition?
So no, while I know that all Connecticut schools have been ordered closed, I can't speak to any of the various other states where we have students placed at this time. I would anticipate that we will see further closings. I'd also suggest that these will not necessarily generate savings in the long run for us. In fact, these students who are missing services now will require compensatory services. We will be responsible for meeting those needs. And so this interruption of service could, in the long run, end up costing us tuition dollars as we have to put stopgap measures in place for the time being and then provide compensatory service for the actual consistent and uninterrupted instruction that the students require.
again, a question that you're not going to be able to answer, but how do you go about finding those compensatory services when all schools are effectively closed?
We're not exactly sure right now, but we do know that we owe the students those services, and we know that whether it's this summer or whether it's a year out, right, in fact, it creates a complication in the way that we budget annually, because for some of these students, it might take more than 1 year to catch up the time that will be lost, and we will certainly be responsible for meeting those needs. So it could be costs that hit us in future years rather than costs that we can actually cover in this current budget cycle. Not to take the opportunity to do that, but there is legislation that does allow school districts to carry over, I believe it's 2% of unspent funds in a special fund that would be held at the town side to cover such unanticipated special educational needs. I know that we've never taken the advantage of that opportunity, but this might be a year that we need to think about such.
This is a unique set of circumstances, so I think from my perspective, that's certainly something that's worth looking into.
Particularly if we see all of a sudden the tuition line, which is right now projected to be in the red, all of a sudden to fall dramatically into the black because of this circumstance. That might be something that we want to discuss later in the school year. I don't anticipate that, but if it does, it might be something we want to talk about because it could be a boomerang effect.
Do you see the school closings having an impact on any sort of scheduled maintenance or repair work? Again, it's very, very early in the process, but I'm just looking into your crystal ball. Do you see it having an impact on what you hope to accomplish to, maintain or make improvements to the buildings?
It's at least something that if we're going to project into a much longer term closure than the 2 weeks that we were initially discussing, that we would want to try to at least take advantage of such. So, even 6 days ago or 7 days ago when we were here last week, we were talking about closings of up to 2 weeks. The language has shifted really quickly to now be discussions of closures of at least 2 weeks. And that's happened nationally, and it's happened really quickly. So not at all something that we were entertaining a couple of weeks ago, but if this does turn into a more long-term shift, then we would want to see if there are opportunities to maintain custodial and maintenance staff and use their presence on property while students aren't there to get ahead of projects, to do projects that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do, and try to make an opportunity out of that, rather than looking at laying off staff who might otherwise not necessarily be needed.
I was also thinking of, I noticed in one of the minutes from the Board of Ed that there was a project addressing a moisture issue for carpeting at the Cox School.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking that would, from my perspective, would be the type of project that if you knew the school was going to be closed for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, that might be an opportunity to get that done, minimizing the impact on the students and,
Sure.
and getting it done
That
perhaps
was work
faster.
that we were otherwise accomplishing after hours, second shift, and on weekends. Depending on all of the other orders about other vendors, whether or not they're leaving their staffs at home or whether or not we can bring their crews in, you're right, there might be work that we could move to less expensive hours.
Right.
If the buildings are gonna be empty for a prolonged period of time.
Unfortunately, there's a tremendous number of moving parts outside of what's going on in the Guilford School District that would either allow that to take place or not. And so I get that this is all speculation right now, but I'm just, there may be opportunities to achieve some of those goals.
And there even becomes the idea of not knowing how long the closing's gonna last. Again, as of this moment, we know that we're closed until October 31st.
No.
March 31st, wow, that would be long. March 31st. So even scheduling of that work, right, we may ultimately be out for a long period of time and we may look back and say we could have completed all of those projects. But when we're deciding week to week if we're gonna open next week or
Right, you
not,
can't do it.
we're not gonna schedule a 2 or 3 or 4 week long project because of the way we're monitoring the conditions. And so, again, we're gonna try to take advantage of any opportunity that we can find. But right now, we're doing some scrambling and backfilling before we start trying to get that forward looking.
Right.
I have a question. Do our contracts allow us to furlough employees? I know that's an unpleasant thing, but sometimes it's better than alternatives.
I think it's fair to say that most of our contracts are silent on the circumstances that we're addressing right now. And so we are trying to follow state guidance. We're trying to follow what's happening legislatively at the state level. I know that there have been expansions to, I think there's been expansions to FMLA language. I think there's been expansion, so we're trying to make sure that we're tracking all of that, but not, I don't believe that any of our contracts speak to furloughs under these conditions, no.
Understood.
And I believe when we've done so in the past, the teachers I know voluntarily stepped away from a pay increase, and I know other districts took furloughs in 2008, 2009. I believe all of those were individually negotiated with memorandums of understanding. I don't think that any of our contracts speak to it now. But we are meeting with our labor attorney and the presidents of all of those bargaining units later this week to have exactly those kinds of conversations.
I had been through one in the past, and it did feel good because the company was able to not lose any employees by doing the furloughs. So that, that was sort of the benefit.
Bob, do you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
John? Jeff? Veronica? I'm good. Could you ask Ken or Megan if they have any other
Ken or
questions?
Megan, any further questions?
No.
No.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
With that being said, thank you for coming out
Thank you all.
on a very interesting evening, needless to say.
Those were some difficult questions.
And with that, I will entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Education for the month of February 2020
So moved.
in the amount of, I gotta say the amount first.
All right.
You're quick, but we know who's gonna,
Get that one.
we know who's gonna be in on that.
Taken care of.
In the amount of $4,666,013.94. Jonathan moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, recusals. Thank you, Dr. Freeman, and thank you, Mr. Delaventura. Item number 5, review and approve expenditures for the town government for February 2020. Mary Jane is up at the podium.
Hello.
For whatever that is now, the isolated table.
The special table.
The special table that Tracy usually sits at.
The short bus, the short table.
Okay, Mary Jane, go ahead.
I'd like to start with revenues.
Sure.
As you can see, we are doing pretty well with revenues at 98% at this point. I do have a couple of comments I'd like to make. As you can see from the selectmen's line at the top, I just want to note that there was a sale of one of our Public Works trucks to the waste transfer station, which accounts for the almost 1,000% overage in their revenue line. But when we have such types of revenue, that's where we put those revenues. The next line is finance. I'd like to talk a little bit about the interest. We do anticipate making our interest for the end of the year, although you will note that most of our money at the moment is in STIF, which is dependent on the market at this point. I have opened a new account through U.S. Bank for a new type of investment, which will divert, been putting $5 million in there, and they're going to move $250,000 into numerous banks, which will allow us to diversify some of that investment that will not be dependent on the market. Those rates are also coming down, but they are not anticipated to come down as low as STIF and the market rates could. So we're doing all we can in finance to keep those that interest income coming in. So I do, at this point, anticipate meeting that budget line.
I should know this, but is FDIC coverage just extended to municipalities, or is that just to?
Correct, and that's why the $250,000. Some municipalities actually have people that manage that on a daily basis, going out to all of those banks individually. But I do have a company that does that on our behalf and puts that out there. So
Sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. No, all good questions. So the fire department also does anticipate bringing in their anticipated revenue for the end of the year. As you can see, they're about 65% received at 66% through the year, but we do not foresee any problems there. And under other departmental, which is our state revenue, they are having conversations at the bond commission to allow us to receive some of our revenues, so we are still hopeful that those revenues will come in by year end.
Question about revenue?
Yes, Ken, go ahead.
Okay, you're at 100% on tax collections. Where do you anticipate being when the year is completed?
We typically are somewhere around 103, 104%, so I would guess that we would be there this year as well.
Mm-hmm. Good. May we ask questions on expenditures?
In a second.
Just a second, Ken, we're still on revenues.
Yeah, did anybody else have anything?
Okay, sorry about that.
All set? Okay. Expenditures. Okay.
Okay, on the expenditure side, we are doing well. This is one of those years where all of our departments are pretty much on target. I would note that, we've had a very good winter, knock on wood. So that has helped our budgets overall, especially in overtime. One note is legal. As you'll see, legal is under budget at this time, but we do have 5 pending contracts, so we do anticipate that expenditure being fully spent by the end of the year at this point. Ken, did you have a question on expenditures?
Let me see. Well, the question was, and I think you referred to it, how are we realizing the benefits of this mild winter?
Specifically, in the overtime line for Public Works, yes. Overtime and expenditures all related to snow removal. We have been able to fill our coffers with sand and salt, so when we, for next year, we're in a very good place.
Do we, sorry about expenditures, do you happen to know how we buy oil? Do we buy it often? Do we buy it in bulk? Can we capitalize on what's going on now?
Heating oil?
Or diesel? Fuel oil?
Well, we have a contract.
Yeah.
We have a contract each year for those, and it is filled on a regular basis. We do keep them filled. We typically make sure that at the end of the year, if there are gallons left on our contract, that we take care of that. Matt, did you want to say something?
Yes, we bought the bid once a year and lock our pricing in. It's usually done in the November timeframe.
Thank you.
And our current vendor of record is, proud to say, a Guilford company, East River Oil, who has been successful in being the low bidder for a number of years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else on expenditures? I do not have any. Warrants. Ken, warrants.
Ken, do you have any questions on warrants?
I do. Page 5.
Can you tell me which one you're on?
It's a good question.
Regular
I
warrant?
think it's March 5th, the batch for March 5th. Page 5 at the bottom, Summerhill Engineering, land surveying on Goose Lane, $15,000. What is that project for?
I hope you heard him.
Land
Yeah,
surveying on Goose Lane.
the question is regarding land surveying on Goose Lane, various projects under engineering. I'm afraid I specifically don't know what that is for, Ken, but I can get back to you unless
Yeah,
Matt
no, it's related to LoSiP funds that we have. The road reconstruction of Goose Lane from basically Nut Plains down is a project that has been approved and funded through the Council of Governments, and these are engineering-related costs for the design work.
I think if you take a drive down Goose Lane, you can see pink stakes
Yeah.
every 30 or 40 yards, so that's probably related to this.
Did Ken hear that?
Nope.
Ken, did you hear that answer? It's related.
No, I did not.
The answer is that it's related to a lot zip project along Goose Lane, engineering.
Design fees only.
Are those
Matt.
covered 80/20 for LoSiP? Is the LoSiP project covered 80/20?
This is a lot zip project.
LoSiP?
Yeah, it's a LoTSIP project,
LoTSIP.
and we have engineering costs in basically in the 80/20 range. This is the reconstruction of Goose Lane from Nut Plains down to Route 95. This was approved by the Council of Governments, and this is State Department, it's actually federal money that flows through the State Department of Transportation. And this is engineering design work for that.
Yeah, so lot zip funds are typically 100% construction, and we pay the engineering, typically.
I see.
That's the difference between
So
lot
that is
zip
all
and low zip.
It's not reimbursable.
Isn't that state, it's like Route 681 or something, it's actually literally, that bit of, between Route 1 to 95 is state, is it not? Yeah.
Where?
On Goose Lane?
Yeah. I think it's referred to as something like Route 681 or something. It's a small, something nobody knows.
Yeah.
Really?
I will ask about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, because let's see, typically, they own between the exit ramps, they own the property between the exit ramps, but do they actually own the road?
Yeah.
Anything else on warrants?
Any other questions, Ken?
Nope, not me.
All right, we'll move on to medical. month?
Medical, you will
report?
see that in the month of February, we did jump up to over $1 million in claims, although we are still showing a projected surplus at the end of the year. Our catastrophic claims are now up to 11, and we jumped to $1.8 million, over 75,000, and we're at 524,000 covered. According to our consultants, we are exactly where we should be at this point, and we do anticipate using all of the catastrophic claim money by the end of the year.
Okay. Yeah, that was gonna be my question, would this be a normal location to be in? It
It's
seems
actually,
like-
it's
'cause we're
very
less than
normal.
half.
Yes, it's, we did have a meeting recently with our health consultant. We asked that very question, and he felt we were right on track.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, anything else from Mary Jane?
Any other questions, Ken or Megan?
No.
Okay. All right, before we do the
Something
phones,
on the weekly warrants, which I'd like to ask you about.
go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Question.
Okay, weekly warrants. Just concerned about I guess it said taxation for the Tower Motel. There are two items down there that add up to $13,000. I wondered what those were.
Weekly?
Over
13,000?
Oh, Tower
13,000.
Motel. Those are legal fees related to a suit that we have with the Tower Motel, with the motel. It's legal fees.
It is our settlement with them.
No, it's related to the appeal on the zoning decision for U-Haul.
Oh,
It's the legal fees for the zoning zoning against U-Haul.
Oh.
anything else? Anything else, Ken?
Okay.
All right. Okay. If nothing else, you can stick up there first? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town for the month of February 2020 in the amount of, sorry, I touched it and of course it went away. The amount of $3,740,190.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, recusals. Okay. Item number 6. Let's see.
So I've spoken the last few meetings regarding the overage in the debt, interest, and principal, which is due to budgeted use of premiums. So I'm here to request that we transfer those premiums into those line items to make them whole. And those are the line items where those premiums have been stored.
Okay. All right. I'm going to need those back, the phones. Thank you. Thank you. You knew I was going to look at you, right, John? Yeah, there.
I didn't touch anything, so it should have
whoa,
just
whoa,
been
whoa,
working.
I got it. All right, how are we doing now? Yeah. Is that gonna go to the Bluetooth, though?
Maybe you need to do a sound check, Mr. Cameron.
All right, Ken, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, good. You got him, okay. Only because I got to say the motion now. And by the way, I just realized for record, you guys probably didn't hear me when I called out for the Board of Education approval. Are you guys in favor of the budget, Board of Education? Did they say that?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't hear that. Okay, so regarding that memo, I will entertain a motion to approve the budget transfers from premiums and reserves to the debt accounts outlined in the Finance Director's memo of March 12th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Okay, any other further discussion on that?
No, thanks.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 7, consider and take possible action on resolution for bonding items for consideration at the April 21st, 2020 budget referendum. I would like to request, I guess, a motion to waive the reading of the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
I just didn't want to read all of that, but it'll all be posted, so I am going to request, everyone read it, correct? Everyone knows what it's in, it's been kind of
Yep.
pounded into our head the last few months, which is all good. We know what it is. So I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the resolution recommending an appropriation and bond authorization of $2,616,000 for upgrades to the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems at Baldwin Middle School and Guilford Lakes Elementary School, the replacement of windows, doors, and blinds at Guilford Lakes Elementary School, and future project design costs for various town schools.
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
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 Abstentions? None. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Let's see, item number 8. Discuss and take possible action on award of bid number 2-1920, auditing services. I had a note here that maybe a member of the subcommittee might want to do an overview and make the motion. I have the motion written out, so I know that, first of all, before we go any further, I want to thank Bob Hartman, Megan Scanlon, and Jeff Beatty for participating in that review. We have all read the report, I'm sure. And Jeff, do you want to do a quick recap, or?
Sure.
Okay.
So the town published a request for proposals in the New Haven Register, and we received 4 proposals. The audit committee then met and decided that we would like to interview 3 of the 4 candidates who had submitted proposals. We scheduled meetings or interviews with those candidates on the morning of February 26th. The candidates attended. We also had in attendance at that meeting, aside from the subcommittee members, we had Mary Jane Malavasi, Linda Trudeau, and Michael Ailes in attendance. And we conducted interviews with all 3 candidates. And then following the interviews, we continued our meeting to discuss which candidate we felt would be the most appropriate auditing firm to submit to hire for the town's auditing services. And after reviewing the qualifications and the proposals and the responses to the various questions that we'd asked at the interviews, it was the unanimous decision of the subcommittee that we recommend to this commission, to this board, that the contract be awarded to Bloom Shapiro, who is our current accounting firm. They were not the low bidder, but given the items contained in their proposal, their familiarity with the town, the fact that they were rotating some of the players who were going to be reviewing the town's finances, we felt that they were the best choice of the candidates that we considered. Is that?
Indeed. We were a little bit surprised that Bloom Shapiro, one of the big mitigants was that they've added cybersecurity services in a big way. They've just purchased a group in Virginia that specializes in this, and we felt that it was value added that none of the others could provide.
Megan, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think you guys added it. I mean, the only other thing I would say is that Bloom Shapiro, I think, did the best presentation, and there were some firms that didn't even bother to have their partners that would be working on the project show up. So I thought that was also a distinction. And I don't know, because I couldn't hear everything, I don't know if you highlighted that there will be a new partner in charge of the of our account. So they did recognize that maybe we needed a little bit different perspective or a different team. So that is part of the
Yeah, thank you.
contract.
Yeah, thank you for adding that.
Yep. Great. So we recommend, that's our recommendation to the board.
Thank you. Again, Jeff, Bob, and Megan. Any other thoughts, questions?
I guess just a question, how much lower was the lowest bidder?
Let me see.
They were all
It was in the order of $12,000 or something.
It wasn't a huge amount, but I don't
No.
remember what it was.
On an annual basis, it was about, the difference between the two was about $6,400.
Okay.
Okay.
That must have been highest.
What's the
to lowest.
total amount for annual amount, or?
That was an annual amount, and over the 5-year total, it would be about $30,000.
No, I mean, how much is the annual amount for the services?
Oh, Bloom Shapiro's offer was $60,900 for the first year, and then Seward and Mondi was $56,000, so it was $4,900 difference, and that was the gap for the first year. And then over the next few years, the gap was about the same. There was annual increases for each of the candidates who submitted a proposal.
Okay.
With the cybersecurity added
Right.
benefit. Okay. Anything further? I'm going to, I'll make the motion on this, all right? Because I just have it here. Motion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendation of the audit subcommittee to accept the proposal of Bloom Shapiro to provide auditing services for the town of Guilford.
So moved.
Second?
Okay? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed?
Me.
Abstentions?
Abstain?
Okay? Committee reports. Building permits. Anything on building permits? Item number 10, old business. I was going to cover OPEB. That's been done. New business, I was going to bring up some of the effects of what we're going through in COVID-19, but I think the Board of Ed certainly represented very well some of the concerns there.
I have a question, though. I mean,
Sure.
with, maybe it's premature, and I recognize that, but in the federal packaging that they've sent out, will any of that funnel down to help the town locally? Do you have any idea?
We haven't seen the details on the federal funding, but if it's similar to FEMA money, if we have qualifying expenses associated with it, yes. In fact, some of the earmarks in there are for unemployment compensation.
Yeah.
That won't come directly to, we don't think that's going to be fed directly through us. Although what I understand is most of the money that is going to be distributed as part of that package is going to come through the Health and Human Services Organization. So we are keeping track of costs associated with the closing. I think the schools are doing something similarly.
Yeah.
So like the requirements with FEMA, we would have to submit eligible expenses.
And then fight to get it?
Well, we've typically gotten it. You
Yeah.
know, hurricane stuff, we did pretty well on it, so.
No, the downside to that is the length of time it
Length
takes
of
to
time
get
it takes to get it, you're right.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there was, I had received an email with some concern about the upcoming budget on a lot of different levels, which I don't think any of us can answer. One of them being just the effect of what's going on with the future budget that's going to be voted on, including, I don't know if there's been any discussion at all about the town meeting or budget referendum and that situation in terms of voting.
There have been.
And I think it's very fluid. I want to make it very clear that that could change overnight on how this all goes. But Matt, do you have any thoughts regarding any discussions that have happened regarding what might happen with the vote or and or the town meeting?
I do have some thoughts, and I have some opinions as well, which probably doesn't surprise you. At this point, we're moving forward as if the referendum is going to take place. The town meeting will be on the 7th. Yes, we'll be limited to 50 people in this building based on the governor's new edict. He dropped the maximum size of any gathering from 250 to 50 today. Now, typically, we've only had, at the budget meeting, typically it's just town employees and elected officials. Because as you know, the town meeting is really a perfunctory exercise to move the question to the machine ballot. So there is an opportunity that budget could be reduced at the annual town budget meeting, but there are some requirements there. At least 300 people have to show up, and 200 of which have to vote in favor of making a reduction. You cannot add to it at that point. So it's kind of a long-winded answer. I don't anticipate that we're going to run into the 50 number at that point. We are in the process of looking at technologies that might work a little better than the ones you're working with tonight to expand the scope of engagement in some of the meetings. We're looking at Zoom, we're looking at Skype. There's a series of jacks over there, which we found out earlier today, aren't connected to anything. They're not punched down in the data closet or over by the voice system. So we also are aware that the governor, in one of the governor's executive orders earlier this week, granted the opportunity to do exactly what we're doing today, which is having meetings with remote attendees. So we think we could accommodate once we make some purchases and buy some software and maybe some hardware. But we think we'll be able to extend the meeting into the community at the town meeting. One thing you should be aware of is the governor also, in one of the 5 executive orders that he's issued, is giving municipalities the opportunity to disregard the timelines that are stated in the charter related to budget development. So we could theoretically move it out by 30 days. That's the current decision made by the governor, is we would have the opportunity to move the town meeting and the referendum out no more than 30 days. As you probably suspect, that becomes a challenge. It only gives us maybe an opportunity at a second referendum should it go down. And we're in a better position than most other municipalities because we're we may be the first in the state to go to referendum. So I will say there are some conversations that I've been party to with CCM and with Sean Scanlon and the governor's office about providing relief from charter mandates about referendums and allowing the elected Board of Finance to be the final arbiter on a budget. That's a long shot, but there are discussions going on about that kind of activity. So that's a kind of a long-winded answer, but yes, we have been thinking and talking about it.
It's very much appreciated that you went over all that because there are, as I had mentioned, there have been some concerns about the voting. There's been some concerns about the budget that's presented and how that's affected. And I'm sure a lot of people are concerned, well, what is this going to do in the bottom line if I've got a fiscal year increase and the markets have gone down? And when it comes to the markets, it really comes down to investments are really being affected short term right now, but long term, no one knows. And I'm addressing that really for more of the audience that may be watching this. because they're going to be stuck at home, a lot of them, for a while, because they can't go anyplace now in terms of groups. So we're just at a point right now where everything is very fluid. And so I wanted to make sure that at least it was addressed, that regarding this unique situation, that we're addressing it on literally an hourly basis.
That is correct. Decisions you think you're comfortable with get obviated relatively quickly. There are a couple of things I want to mention. For those in the viewing audience who do not currently get notifications through the mass notification system, there is a link on our website where you can sign up to get those. I've sent out 2 in the last couple of days. There'll be another one going out tomorrow. At this morning's Board of Selectmen meeting, I asked for support from with the other members of the Board of Selectmen for issuing a declaration of emergency for the town of Guilford. This is being done throughout the state by other municipalities. New Haven recently did it. I think Madison did it on Sunday or Sunday. They had a special meeting. But by state statute, anyone who's interested, Connecticut General Statute 28-8A, in times of emergency gives the chief elected official the opportunity to exercise some control and make decisions that normally are not afforded. It's emergency operations activities. There is, because the governor has declared a state of emergency, and also the president has done the same, that level of authority now exists. I asked the Board of Selectmen for support in that regard, only because that's the way pretty much we've been doing things. Everybody seems to try to get on the same page and doing stuff like that. So there is a good chance that tomorrow I will be issuing a declaration of civil emergency for the town of Guilford. It also theoretically gives us the opportunity to participate in some funds on what they're calling intrastate basis. If we partner with other regional municipalities, and let's say we provide fire services because none of the volunteers in Madison can come out of their house, there would be an opportunity for us to share in some regional dollars that are available. So there's another thing I firmly believe, as you read, thank you very much for reading the words that I had sent on to you about this meeting. I firmly believe government plays a large role in stability and keeping panic down. And the fact that we are currently open for business, with the exception of the community center and the library. Both of those are closed to the public. Those are the only 2 departments in town that are currently closed to public access. We are employing best practices in social distancing, even within the office. We have tape on the floor, do not go past this point. Documents can be picked up and dropped off in places. The community center, even though it is technically closed, we are looking at drive-up meal pickup for some of the seniors. Unfortunately, one of the byproducts of the closing this facility is the seniors can't get lunch. I know, Bob, you served lunch a couple of times with me, and I think others have done the same thing. It's not uncommon on any given day for 60, 70, or 80 seniors to be here at lunch. On Friday last, there were over 100, there was around 100 at lunchtime. For many of those folks, that is their only opportunity at a square meal. And it also provides a significant amount of socialization. So some of these decisions hurt, but that population being among the most vulnerable, it made sense to do that. So Meals on Wheels is going to pick up some of the slack on that, on some of those, and deliver more. Over the past weekend, as a result, because in the mass notification I sent out on Friday, I asked for volunteers for Meals on Wheels. Lo and behold, they got 20 calls with volunteers. So that's the nature of this community. People are stepping up and ready to do things. So I think that's one of the reasons why despite the fact that the shelves look a little empty at Big Y, there isn't, I don't think there's an overall sense of panic at this point. So we will be keeping government open until such time as we're forced to make a different decision. And that decision will most likely come with a trigger event. And that trigger event will be someone has tested positive for the coronavirus, either a family member or an individual who works for the town. So that's probably more than you guys want to hear. And here's my last pitch. The impact on this is going to be felt for a long time. You talked a little bit about the economic impact. Bob might agree with me. I don't think there's structural issues with the economy, but there are certainly external forces that are playing havoc with it. And those forces are going to play havoc with your friends and your neighbors and the businesses right here in town. We have, as of an hour ago, restaurants can no longer serve beverages of your choice. They can only stay open if they do takeout meals. So there are shopkeepers, small shopkeepers all over town, who are going to be impacted by this. And there is an opportunity for us. Go buy a gift certificate, all right, at a local merchant. Even though you don't need it now, you'll be able to use it later on. Stop at any one of the restaurants downtown and pick up a gift certificate, because when it comes back, you'll be able to use it. But let's remember that there are a lot of folks impacted on this, and particularly the stuff that drives our community, the opportunity to shop, live in the style that we expect to in this town. So that's an appeal to not to you folks as much as it is to those in the audience. Do whatever you can to help keep Guilford businesses viable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Can I add a comment? Sure. So I was actually curious tonight if we could divert resources to help in some way, and I think our superintendent gave us an example that he's trying to bring meals to families who are used to getting lunch at school, and the example of trying to get Meals on Wheels to bring some of the community center meals to seniors. I'm wondering, are there other opportunities to do that? Maybe with the library closed, should we be bringing people books?
Actually,
cooped up in their house.
Great point. Rob McCool and his team are working with doing a drive-through circulation desk. You call ahead of time, you get your book. They look at your card, library card, or you don't even need a library card. It's online accounts for most of it. But they're looking at that and trying to develop a protocol on that where people could actually come into just the front foyer where the books would be stacked in bins or whatever it is, that people could take that.
And you can borrow digitally on their website.
And borrow digitally. And that Rob is going to try to actually promote the digital capabilities.
And I think keeping our people doing something, I always feel better from doing something, even if it's small, but to try to help the situation.
And there's
maybe
over
that'll
1,200 acres of land owned by Guilford Land Trust and the town of Guilford that are open and waiting for exploration.
Exactly. We are, at this point, we are not, there are some communities who are closing access to beaches, parks, and playgrounds. We are not going to do that until such time as Dennis Johnson suggests that we need to. I was on a conference call today with the chief elected officials for the council, our council of government, and it's split about 50-50 down the middle on parks, beaches, and playgrounds at this point. So to your point, get out there and do some hiking.
Why you can't.
Well,
you can't.
I understand playgrounds, that would make sense,
Yeah,
but
I-
trails
yeah.
or hiking,
Yeah.
you could
Seems like
social
there's enough
distance that,
space.
yeah.
Personal distance.
I would be surprised if those were included, but when the weather gets nice, they are congregational areas.
And the nature of the pathogen is not easily spread outside.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And subdued by sunlight.
Yes. UV.
At this point, Mr. Chairman, I'd like your guidance, because I'm a new boy here, we've got this rainy day fund, and it's well-funded, and very often people ask us, what are you doing with so much money? Is there precedent for us to carve off or, devote or allocate a portion of that for situations such as this?
Is there precedent?
Yeah.
We've done
Is there,
it.
what are
We've done it
what are
before.
the,
I mean, we
what are the
don't have
mechanisms?
this precedent.
What are the mechanisms to make money of it?
That's you guys.
Yeah.
I think a shortage in the budget.
I think there's shortage in revenues
be definitely
or
a
expenses that we
One-time
don't.
expenditures?
It's one-time expenditures that we
Yeah.
can
Okay,
We
I'm
pull
just
it
thinking about being proactive rather than waiting for it. That would be reactive.
Yeah, I think we would all agree it's early, but we do have that as an option.
Okay.
In my mind, it's a last resort option. It would have to be something that is it's simply a one-time, which, I can't, there's no precedent since I've been on the board that it was a one-time.
Because I
We
anticipate-
used it, there was a time where it was used to reduce the budget and reduce the mill rate, but that was very dangerous and it got us in a lot of trouble.
I agree. I anticipate the question.
Yeah, no, and I very much appreciate it, because it may be something we're gonna need to consider as the months go on.
But if I might, it may not necessarily be that we need it to balance the town budget, because you saw the numbers in terms of the revenue that's already in the door. We're at, what, 99% on our overall revenue. However, there, on the Board of Education side, you heard that there may be a call for funds for them. And then I think you might have been driving to this, Bob, is a social network.
Yep.
Right? There are going to be people who are hurt, there are going to be things that happen here.
Oil and tanks, food, fridges, everything, all the above.
Yeah, so, but that's a great point, and I think it's worth consideration.
Can you mention or think of any other ways to help our shop owners in our local economy?
Actually, we're working with Todd Taylor, who bought most of the shops, the Whitfield shops, and Brian McGlone, our Economic Development Coordinator. We're working to do something like that. In the mass notification that I'm going to send out tomorrow, there will be a piece that addresses making sure you support the merchants here in town.
Okay. I think I'm up to a gift certificate already.
We're gonna get very creative, very fast.
Yes.
So, thank you, Matt, for
Thank you.
for that. Well, first I'm gonna ask for public forum, because I know that'll be easy. And there's no public forum. So I just want to end with two things. One, I want to reiterate the mass notification system. That is where, just going to the Guilford Public Schools website, going to the Town of Guilford website, the links are there. They've been very helpful for me, probably most of our elected officials and the community, so I want to reiterate that. And until further notice, I mean, right now, April 7th is the town meeting here in this room at 7:30. The budget referendum is April 21st. All voting locations, 6 to 8, 6 in the morning to 8 at night. And any updates to that, I'm sure will be mass notification. It'll all be there. I don't believe I have anything else. In our April meeting, I believe that I will, as well as our selectman's office, will keep us informed as where we're going to meet. Will it be here, separated again by 6 feet? Will we have better technology that we don't have to come in at all? But suffice it to say that we'll figure it out over a very quick period of time. And everybody, please stay healthy. Wash your hands and all that other stuff. And to the viewing audience, do everything you can to stay safe. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Megan,